Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. So excited for today's guest. She's a health coach and she helps people create long-lasting habits for life. And her program is called 365 Lean for Life. Super excited to be talking to Melissa Linke. Melissa, hey, you ready to rock?
Ready to rock. Good morning, rock stars from
Right?
4 a.m. at Melbourne.
Yes, across the pond. I'm here in Canada. She's here. What a great world we live in where we can actually make connections from around the world, right? And
Incredible. I love it. I've met so many people.
yeah, and thank you so much for making yourself available on my time schedule. That's really appreciated for sure.
Anytime.
So we always start off on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business or your life that we can be inspired by.
Yeah. Okay. So with COVID, I think that's probably the best story that I can start with. So on March 23rd last year, we went into lockdown in Australia. And on March 24th, I lost about 85% of my business that I'd cultivated over about 5 years. That hurt. So after I spent probably, I think, 3 or 4 weeks kind of pining in a pint of Ben and Jerry's, I pivoted and I realized something. I had an extraordinary opportunity to finally get my hooks stuck into something that I've been passionate about for so long. You see, I kind of, for a long time, have been really kind of distraught by the fitness industry. We do so much to perceive that we're helping people, but we really are sending them into a path of failure. So we set up all these 12-week challenges, these detoxes, these 8-week challenges, these fitness kind of things, and all of them are short-lived. And it got me really upset when people would sit in my office and they'd say to me, "Oh, hey, Melissa, I really want to get back to myself. I'm not feeling great. I've put on 5 kilos. But hey, I did this celebrities challenge and I lost 5 kilos. But there they are sitting in front of me having gained that five and most of the time an extra five on top of that." And that was something that personally really hit me in the feels, if you could say,
Mhm.
because I was obese and became a fitness model, then stuffed it up again and have finally found a way to be 365 lean. um, and I saw COVID kind of, it presented me with an opportunity. So I could have sat on my thumbs and just wait around for things to go back to normal, which we all know now there is no normal. It is a new world. Or I had an opportunity. And what I did is I finished my nutrition qualifications. I sat down, put pen to paper, and I created an entirely new course that the fitness industry hasn't seen. um, Where to go. Every single piece of content, all from my experience, literally everything I know and everything I've ever learned about habits, I put into 15 modules and made it so damn easy for people to do health and to change that and to get them thinking about it long term. So I think that was the biggest challenge that I've overcome is COVID, losing a business, and then finding my passion and it feeling like the first year of my life I've ever actually been alive. That was incredible. That's probably my best story to date, I think.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, and you're right. I mean, it is such a new world. And what do they call it? The COVID-15? I don't even know. It's probably the COVID-50 by now because it's been over a year. But like, you know, I do know that, I've been self-employed working from home for a long time, but it is very, very difficult to keep your habits in check when you are at home and the fridge is right there. So I am very excited for your advice on how to get through this on this podcast. But before we get to that, with the good notes, we have to take the bad notes as well. Every once in a while, we're going to hit
Yeah.
one. And I'm wondering, can you share a story of failure in your business or something that really kind of brought you back and you either recovered from, or you can help us to not, to avoid it completely?
Yeah. So in business, that was probably my story of failure is losing that business within that 24-hour span and getting back on track and changing my life direction to an online platform and to something more purposeful that's going to add value to the lives of the world was really one of those things. But so I don't rehash that, I can go to a personal story where I had a lot of a really bad time.
Yeah.
And that was going from being obese and going to being a fitness competitor. And you'd think that would be an awesome transition, right? Like you go from being obese and then you've got these rock hard abs and you're like, yeah, I've made it. That's enough. I'm enough for the world. Uh, no, that's not how it went. So after that, it was
Mhm.
really debilitating. And I went down this spiral after I'd done this massive bout of restriction and competing and put on another 18 kilos. And that affected my entire life. So all of that stemmed from a place of not having any self-worth and low self-esteem and just not being enough for the world. And conquering that has been the biggest step in my life to getting to help other people. I want them to avoid the feelings that I went through and see if I can, influence their health positively, because I can't explain to you the deep depths that it felt like to be in that hole and just feeling like you're nothing to the world, you can't give anything to the world, and that you just have no voice. I've been silent for probably about 33 years up until this last year before I started to speak out on it and, you know, bring to the light that it's okay if you've had an eating disorder, it's okay if you've had sexual abuse in the past, it's okay if you don't feel okay or if you don't feel like your best self. Like, you can recover and you can get around it and you can have an incredible life and help other people. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I picked out a couple interesting things from your stories, and one that's really I find very interesting is that something that would be considered probably a really really bad thing, like losing your business, which would be
Mm,
you'd consider that to be a low. You're looking
mm.
back on that as a good thing because you were able to recover and create something outside of it and look at it in a different way. And then
Yeah.
something that you would think that would be like a really good thing, like losing a bunch of weight and becoming a fitness model, you're looking back on it and going like, oh, that kind of was a bad thing because that was like, a pinnacle
Yeah.
where I could only go down. And I just find that really interesting that when people are looking at their life, they're trying to shoot for these star goals and all that stuff, and it ends up not really fulfilling them. And then some people will have something really really terrible happen to them, and that ends up being the best thing. So,
Mm.
I think maybe that's something to just think about in our lives in general and go like, whatever's happening to me, whatever's in front of me right now, it's neither good nor bad. It really depends on how we look at it and how we perceive that event. And just trying to make the best out of whatever's happening at any point in time, right?
Absolutely. You can shift perspective on any matter at any time. So you can choose to make something good or bad, right? We all give meaning to things. Meaning isn't assumed or isn't assigned. We give meaning to an experience, essentially. So we get to make that choice. Like, we have so much more power than people choose to believe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you were talking about abuse and things like that. I feel like the world is just so broken in the way that many of us, even if we had a great childhood, there's always some sort of trauma that happens when we're kids, even just maybe when we were a baby, when our mom would just take off. We would have perceived that as a baby as being abandoned. And so,
Absolutely.
regardless of what happened in your life, there is something there that is affecting you mentally, and we take that into our future, and then we start to build on that and we start to create these stories. And what ends up happening is that when we talk to anybody who's achieved something big, you always find that they have this crazy story of failure and of something happening to them, and they just
Yeah.
took that and they did something with it, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's because they're ultimately comfortable with being uncomfortable. So when you've gone through adversity in life, you have got some level of tolerance for, discomfort. And what it takes to succeed is some level of tolerance for discomfort, right? True?
Yeah, absolutely, totally. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to take risks, and both of those things are very uncomfortable, right?
That, and then you stop taking things for granted so much because you know what it's like for things to be a little bit not great.
Mhm.
So, you really can take a really nice path in your life and start to appreciate the good things, be grateful for them, and look for opportunity for things to be better.
Yeah, and I think awareness and looking at whatever that problem is. I've always found in my life when there's something that's not going right, you tend to sort of like the real problem is the thing that you just shoo under the rug, and you're like, no, 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 my problem is actually this over here. It's something that I can look at this problem. I can look at this problem and be comfortable looking at this problem, but the real problem is over here. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm ignoring. And what ends
Yeah.
up happening is that, like you say, when you really start to make those changes and those shifts, it's because you've actually looked at a real problem that's really holding you back, right?
Yes. Do you know what? I think stress is one of the best examples of that. Everyone is so quick to dismiss the stress word because it's thrown around a lot, so it's a little diluted. But people are like, no, no, I'm fine. I'm sleeping fine. I'm not stressed. I'm great. And they're not producing at work. They've lost their creativity, but they won't look for the simple solution. They'll sweep that under the rug, but they're looking for some massive quick fix or some massive problem to be the cause of their poor health or their sleep issues or their lack of productivity or they're falling asleep at their desk at 3 p.m. Like we're always looking for like the big thing and won't always acknowledge the small problem that is easily solved because it's not big enough. They sweep it under the rug, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I perceive it to be important.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. I actually have a little bit of experience with. I actually used to promote a health challenge. That was one of my many businesses that I've had in the last 15 years since being. Yeah, I did that for a few years, and what I always thought was interesting, and I used to teach people how to do it. It was in the network marketing space, and so I used to coach people on how to overcome objections. And one of the most interesting things I found was that the main two objections are time and money. I don't have the time to improve my health. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to exercise, or I don't have the money to do it. And what I thought was really interesting is that the person who is giving you the time excuse usually had a money reality problem. And the
Yeah.
person who gave you a money excuse usually had a time. So it's so funny how, people become comfortable with the objection that they're giving you, but
Yeah.
really it's something else, right?
Always.
Yeah.
I
And
think you're right on that for sure.
yeah, so now, but one thing that I do agree 100% with you is 365. I think that it really isn't a quick anything. I think that we really do need to create habits. We need to create something that you just it's in you now, and this is how you live your life in order to be healthy, both mentally and physically. And
Yes.
so I'm wondering, practice makes perfect. That's part of one of my topics here. So tell me, how do you create habits to be healthy?
You know what? It is way easier than people think. So, what I've noticed is people tend to adopt an all or nothing kind of mindset when it comes to changing their health. And they're like, great, I'm going to go on a health kick. I'm going to change 15 things. I'm going to start drinking more water. I'm going to eat just tuna and salad all day. I'm going to exercise an hour a day. I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week. And that's the issue. That's why people are really struggling to make habits because they're making it so hard to start and so hard to see any kind of progress because humans need progress to keep going, right? If you don't see progress on something in your work, you get a little bit stale. You don't see progress in your, I don't know, your love life or your family or relationships, you kind of get a little bit stale. So the easiest way for people to make habits is with pretty much one sentence. Pick one teeny tiny small thing that you cannot fail, write it down on a piece of paper, tick it off every day for a week. Now, people are like, wait, but that's too easy. But once it's an accumulative and compounding effect. So, week one, you might be like, right, cool, I'm going to try and drink 5 glasses of water today, which is one more than my normal four. Great. Write it down, tick it off every single day. And you know how good you're going to feel about yourself after you've done that for a week? You're going to feel awesome about yourself. And
Yeah.
then you might add another small thing. All right, I'm going to make sure I have a good breakfast, some protein and fat to keep my blood sugar stable. And that might be your next goal. And as that kind of moves on, it's going to make way more change because someone can make really short term change for 8 weeks and it could be hard and fast and give them a really poor mindset around all or nothing. Or they can make small investments for 365 days a year and they can kind of get a much better return on that than someone who goes hard for 8 weeks and doesn't do much for the other, I don't know, what is it, 40 something weeks. And that's really where it's at. Teeny tiny little goals.
So how long would you keep that up? So let's just say your first goal is I'm gonna add an extra glass of water. So
Yeah.
how long would you do that before you consider that to be now a new habit?
I would do that for 7 days. And then I would layer on like an onion. It's like an onion effect. You want to be an onion of habits. So you want to layer on. So even if you're adding a very small secondary goal at the 8th day, you'll then still continue to do your water goal whilst you're doing your next layer. And then the next week you'll add on your other layer, and then you'll have 3. So each one of them becomes more ingrained each week because you never really stop doing the habit. You just add a little bit more on when you've got the mental capacity. Because human minds are great, but there's only so much change we can really handle at one time.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. And you need to be able to check that thing off and say, I succeeded at this, right?
Yes, got to have progress.
So
Mhm.
something else that I noticed, and I laugh about it because sometimes people will sort of choose a goal that they want to do, and then if they kind of mess up that goal, they just throw the whole thing out and just say, you know what, I failed today, so I'm just gonna eat whatever I want for the rest of the day. How would you handle that? It's like if somebody drops their phone and they just beat it with a hammer because it's already broke, it's already on the floor, right?
Yes, yes. So in my program, I do mindset coaching because I purely believe that every action that you take stems from your mind. So if your mind is right, you're going to start to make the right decisions in your life anyway. And I do this is such a serious issue. People don't realize how much they succumb to it all the time. But I do a 3-part series on kind of recovering from times you've taken a binge. And the whole point of it is you have a choice here. Just because you've got one toe hanging off the edge of a cliff, you're not going to hurl your body off, are you? Not at all. So, my hints and tips are that number one, recognize first, just be conscious. Recognize the times when you're starting to do that. Because if you cannot recognize it, you cannot start to change it.
Yeah.
And number two, start to question your behavior. You don't have to make any change just yet, but you need to start questioning it. Is this going for or against my goals? Is this going to help or is this going to hinder me? Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then third, once you've managed to recognize it, you need to question it, you want to start to take some action and you want to start to maybe be conscious, slow your roll. So if you know that you're about to throw yourself off the deep end, you know what, maybe walk a little bit slower towards the cliff. So if it's an alcohol thing, maybe slow yourself down, have a glass of water before you have your next drink. If it's a food thing, put your fork down, just sit back for a minute and just let it rinse over and try and slow the roll. Just slow the roll. That's it. So one,
Nice.
conscious. Two, start to question. Three, slow your roll. And that's going to start to get you like back in the room again and back in control of what your hands are doing.
Nice.
Devil's work
Nice.
with the hands. Yeah.
Okay, so next, I've got so many questions for you.
Yeah. I
so,
love it. Keep them coming.
so I mean, this is the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. This is for people
Yeah.
who are working from home, and home is where the pantry is. Home is where the fridge is.
Yeah.
So, how do I set myself up so that I'm not constantly going to the fridge or going to the pantry to get more food?
Yeah.
How do I handle that?
We've got to delve into the mindset with this one and we've got to think, right, what are you trying to soothe with the food? So if you're not physically hungry, then there's an emotional factor involved 100% of the time. So what is it that you're trying to soothe? Is it you're trying to soothe the stress from work or anxiety you've got about a situation? Are you bored? Are you lonely? Are you sad? Starting with the emotional point is really important, which leads on to the subject of looking after your emotional health. So what practices do you have in place? Do you meditate? Do you journal? Like, how are you managing your stress at home? Because if you're at home, right, you have no segregation, you have no polarization from work anymore. So a lot of time you can leave work and you can leave everything in the office, leave your stress in the office, leave your anxiety
Yep.
in the office, leave your project in the office. When you're working from home, that's all coming with you. It's sitting next to you on the couch at night while you're trying to have your dinner. You're working that little bit later because your computer's in front of you. Um, so I think you need to create some polarization and really learn to deal with the stress of working at home. Would you agree?
I agree 100%, which kind of leads into the next part of it. What if and maybe this isn't a problem when we get back to I guess normal, but now it seems as though your partners are at home now, your kids are at home now. So how do you stop the negative influence as well? Like what happens if they're not necessarily on board with your goals? How would you handle that?
Oh man, that's such a tough one. Fortunately, I live by myself, so I get to have this great little cocoon of health. I'm very lucky in that way, but I understand that everyone else has got, well, a lot of people have different experiences in life. And I think it is a challenge, but I always believe that you need to do what is best for you, and I would encourage people to become the leader. So in health in households, I find there's always a leader. So there's someone who's influencing the behavior. So there's someone that like at 10 o'clock at night is like, hey, you want to get out the Ben and Jerry's? Like there's always
Yeah. Oh yeah.
one guy that's the instigator. So I think in that time, you maybe need to lead by example. And then, people aren't going to necessarily change their behavior based on what you want to do. But if you can start to lead and you can start to prioritize your health, people will see that and they'll want to do the same with you. And in the case of kids, like they model their parents, right? I don't have any myself, but I've got some pretty cute nieces, and I've got to tell you, they're like little parrots for my sister and my brother-in-law, and they will model what you do. So if you start eating healthy and you start taking a positive mindset towards health and changing yourself, they'll do it too because they want to be involved in what mummy and daddy are doing, right? Is that not the case? Do you have any
Yeah,
kids?
I do. Yeah, my son is a teenager now, and my partner has two as well, teenagers.
Yeah,
uh, so now they have their minds of their own, but back
yeah,
in the beginning, yeah, I mean they did what we did. So I think
yeah,
you're right. I think the tougher one is the spouse. It's the partner in your relationship that wants
yeah,
to do something. But I like what you're saying. Take ownership of the problem, and maybe you're the one that makes that suggestion before you know that they're going to.
yeah,
Maybe you can start to keep an eye on when that bag of chips comes out. It comes out at chances are they are creatures of habit as well. So
100.
so
Yeah,
they're going to be doing it around the same time every day. So maybe a half hour earlier, you might want to offer some nuts, or I don't know. I'm sure you have meal plan options,
yeah,
but some sort of healthier option instead of the
yeah.
Ben and Jerry's, right?
Yeah, break the pattern. Break the pattern, start a conversation. So it doesn't even need to be something that's so secretively leading, but you can, in a conscious relationship with your partner, if you're truly connected and you're really open with each other, you can say, hey, this is what I'm planning on doing, because you're an individual in a relationship, right? So you can consult your SO and say, look, this is what I'm planning on doing. I've seen that I have got some kind of gap that I need to bridge in my health, and this is what I'm going to try and do. I'd really love it if you could if you could support me and if you could have my back on this. I don't expect you to change, but this is what I really want to do. Can you please support me? And you know what? That's like 2 minutes worth of conversation, and it will go such a long way in getting you to where you need to go and getting you the support that you need. Because no one goes it alone, right?
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, then you kind of pull back to leading by example, and creating better patterns for you and your partner, right? Because sometimes that might not go. Maybe they might say no, 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 no. But and then on the other hand, maybe they might be supportive of you, but
Mm.
still bringing out the chips, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so in that case, yeah, bringing something else out and filling up before the chips come out might be a good option, right?
That's a great option. So if you know that the chips and the ice cream are coming after dinner, maybe have a bit more protein at dinner so that you feel satiated, and then get yourself a cup of tea, get yourself a beverage that you enjoy and have that instead. Just super simple stuff just to break the pattern.
Yep, exactly. So
Yeah.
now the next thing I want to talk about is learning from the best. Going out there and finding mentors or masterminds or something like that. Like, is there anything that you suggest in getting better health? Like, do you think a coach is necessary, or how would you handle that?
Yeah. So I've got two schools of thought on this. One, if you are going to get a health coach, do some research into them. So here's what to avoid. It's easier for me to tell you what to avoid. Avoid people that have got end dates. Avoid people that do time-based challenges, because what's going to happen is you're going to go all in, all hard, all fast for your 8 weeks or your 6 weeks. And then you're going to resort back and relapse back to your old behaviors because it's just not going to be sustainable. And number three, when you are selecting your health coach, make sure they take a holistic approach to health. So they're not just talking about your nutrition or your physicality and your training, but they're starting to look at the whole picture of you. So your mindset, your sleep, your habits around certain lifestyle factors like alcohol, drugs, smoking, all that jazz. Someone that can look at you as a whole and see you as a human being and not as just, I want to get your money so I can do an 8-week challenge. That would be my advice in selecting a health coach. Really do you do that's a tough one to get out at 4 in the morning. Due diligence on someone that's going to look after all of you, and you'll get better results that way for selecting a health coach.
Yeah.
And my other side of that is, well, hey, with a coach and with a health coach, obviously you're not going to have them for the rest of your life, right? You're not going to it's a short-lived relationship generally of a couple of years, but ultimately you need to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet, right? You
Right.
can't be having someone telling you what to eat all day long and telling you how to train all day long. Like, you need to find some empowerment in your life. So on the other token of that, I personally like to empower people to break up with me. I actually want people to break up with me. I want them to be like, oh, hey, you've taught me so much. I know how to nourish myself. I know how to look after my stress. I know how to look after my mindset, and I know how to train myself now. Love you. Thanks so much for your help. I'll send you a Christmas card, but see you later. I'm breaking up with you. And I think that is the best thing that I can possibly give people, is empowerment over their own health. Like, stop putting your health in other people's hands. Like, take it, own it, make it yours, and succeed at it.
Love it. Love it. So now it's
Mm.
time for your guest solo. So tell me what is exciting in your business right now.
Oh man, so 365 Lean, my program, is my baby that I'm spending a majority of my time on at the moment. So it's basically exactly what I said. I empower people and I make health so easy for people to do by breaking it down. So people, I think, they're really smart. Intellectually, they know what to do. They just don't know how to make it stick, because it's kind of like throwing jelly at a tree and trying to like nail it onto the tree. It just doesn't work. So I really help people bridge the gap between knowledge and application by giving them really super simple, tangible, easy ways to change their mindset, to change their nutrition, to change their movement, and get a better vitality. So you can work at home, better vitality, better productivity, and just get a better feeling body overall. And I think what's been most exciting about it is that people report that it's been easier than they ever thought it would be. Like, it does not have to be that hard.
Yeah.
So
And that's the point, right? How are you going to stick with it if it's super hard, right?
you can't, you don't, you feel like you're failing, and humans don't like to fail.
No, they do
We
not.
don't love it. We're not really a fan. Yeah.
So how do we find more information on this then?
Yeah, you can find me in a couple of places, as is social media. You can find me at Melissa Linke on Instagram, Melissa Linke _, on Facebook. And also, if you want, I actually have a 365 Lean members free group. So if you just type that in, 365 Lean by Melissa Linke on Facebook, it'll come up with a free members group where I shower people with loads of habitual things to practice in their life. And also program, man, there's a lot of places to be these days, huh?
Sure
Far out.
is.
If you do want to purchase the program, you can go to www.a112wcrevolution.com.au, and that's a story for another day. We're only a year old and we've had a rebrand already, but you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. Make sure you send me that link. I'll put it in the show notes.
Thank you. Yeah, you're going to need it. That one's a confusing one.
Great. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Melissa. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I can help you guys with your habits at home and get you
Yep. I think,
successful.
yeah, we're going to need it because lots of people are working from home now, and we need some tools, right?
Yeah, happy to help. So anytime, any questions, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. So thank you again for rocking out, and thank you to the guests for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.